All right, tonight our guest speaker is Stuart Coleman, and Stuart Coleman is a writer, speaker, and environmental advocate. Coleman is the award-winning author of 3 books, Eddie Would Go, Fierce Heart, and Eddie Aikau, Hawaiian Hero, and the recipient of the Elliott Cades Award for Literature. As a keynote speaker, Coleman has given talks about Hawaiian history and culture, environmental issues, transformational leadership, and sustainable development at events in Hawaii, across the United States, and in countries like Costa Rica and China. As the former Hawaii manager of the Surfrider Foundation, he helped pass landmark laws to reduce plastic pollution, create smoke-free beaches and parks, and protect water quality. After being selected as a Midir Fellow in 2018, Coleman went on to create environmental nonprofit called WAI, Wastewater Alternatives and Innovations, where he serves as the executive director. My bad. Without further ado, welcome, Stuart.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you all. Thanks for the invitation. And let me just pull up my invitation here. All right. Okay, is that clear to everyone? Or do you still see the sidebar?
Yeah. Oh, it's coming.
It's coming. All right. Well, thank you for that kind introduction. I appreciate that. And we've been working with Christina, getting input from realtors on a number of bills. And so it was asked earlier why we have this, this picture. I always like to inject a little humor into this topic because, as some people say, it's a very crappy topic. But we like to say that cesspools anywhere near the coast are like toilets on the beach. So we set up this this shoot in Waimanalo, and people got a kick out of it. So I use it as my background as well, and it gets people's attention, especially from the mainland. But for a little background, for some reason it's not letting me. There we go. WAI is an organization that's a nonprofit who is dedicated to protecting water quality, reducing sewage pollution, and restoring watersheds. And we do this through trying to come up with more affordable and eco-friendly solutions to wastewater management. We've been using systems that are, decades and sometimes even a century old, and there's a lot of room for innovation. And our vision is just to really help the state, counties, and homeowners and communities get through this difficult process of upgrading cesspools and their failing septic systems to introduce more affordable and efficient solutions. And we have 5 pillars or programs, and that's including introducing innovative technology, trying to find financial resources for homeowners, doing policy and advocacy to change the laws and regulations to allow for more innovation, doing outreach and education like tonight, doing presentations, community presentations, and then really getting pilot projects in the ground so that we can show people what we're doing in this new technology that we're using. There we go. So it's important to remind people that, wastewater pollution from these cesspools and septic systems allows untreated wastewater into the groundwater, and it travels to our ocean, beaches, and bodies of water, and they contain harmful bacteria, parasites, and viruses, and they really do pose a lot of environmental and human health threats. And so for all of us who do anything in the water, it's an important thing to remember, but it also affects our drinking water, and that affects all of us. So to give you a scope and scale of the problem, we have more cesspools in the country than any other state, and we're the last state to ban them by decades. So we're a little behind the curve here. We have almost 90,000 cesspools across the state that release 53 million gallons of sewage into our groundwater every day. So to put that in scope, who remembers the sewage spill in Waikiki in 2006? That was 48 million gallons. It was discharged into the Alawai. It shut down Waikiki, made international headlines. People couldn't go on the beach for a week. And that was 48 million gallons. So this is 53 million gallons every day, to give you a sense of the scale. But thanks to Act 125, we passed the mandate to upgrade all cesspools by 2050. And we are working to help people. And, with climate change and sea level rise, we're going to have more extreme weather events like we had in Honolulu in 2018. And this is a very wealthy community, but they were devastated by the floods and the rains. And all of those cesspools and septic systems in this area just flooded right into the bay. So it was pretty bad. And, you've probably seen some of the headlines over the last few years. And, it really has become an issue of increasing importance because, again, with sea level rise, they're starting to inundate a lot of cesspools near the coast. So a cesspool is basically just a hole in the ground. And many of you might have seen them, but a lot of people, most people are just kind of flush and forget. You don't think about where it goes, but it gets all of the black water from your toilets and kitchen sink and all the gray water from your showers and sinks and washing machines. And it just goes into the hole in the ground with maybe bricks on the side that are lining it, and it's open on the bottom. So there's no treatment. So all the pathogens and nutrients just go right into the groundwater. And they travel, down into streams and to our coastal areas. So, these untreated wastewater can cause all kinds of diseases like gastroenteritis, hepatitis A, conjunctivitis, leptospirosis, salmonella, and cholera. And we because tourism is such an economic engine for the state, we just cannot afford to let our waters get polluted, just on that very bottom line economic way, but more importantly for our environment and our human health. We just can't afford to do this. So a septic tank and septic system, by contrast, all the waste from your house goes into a contained septic tank, and it has baffles, and the sludge, the solids settle to the bottom, and the rest of the water, there's a little bit of treatment that goes through, and then it goes into an outlet, into a dispersal system like a leach field. And the microbes in the ground and the soil, and if it's designed correctly, will treat that waste, the rest of the waste. And if it's done really well, it'll make it pretty good. What it doesn't do is reduce nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen. And what we've seen in areas with lots of cesspools and even septic systems is the nitrogen and the phosphorus, the nutrients go out into the ocean, and they can kill reefs and fish populations and do a lot of harm. So this is kind of just sketching out the problem. People have a home, they have a cesspool, it goes in there, goes into the groundwater, and then in some areas where there are wells, it has contaminated groundwater, and we see elevated rates of nitrogen. But then it continues out to the near shore, and that's where it can really wreak havoc, cause algal blooms. And the only other place that has more cesspools than Hawaii in general, we have the most per capita, is Long Island. And the Long Island Sound, where we used to go clamming when I was a kid, we would travel up there. Now the shellfish industry has collapsed, and they've traced it to contamination from cesspools and failing septic systems. So it's a real problem with economic, health, and environmental problems. Along with polluting our drinking water, We have documented elevated risk of cancer, especially colorectal cancer, with higher rates of nitrogen in the water. And there are certain parts of Hawaii that they've already documented that. We've also seen higher rates of pathogens in the waters, and Hawaii has 4 times the rate of staph infections than the rest of the country and 2 times the rate of MRSA infection. So it can have very serious consequences. The environmental aspects, like I said, it can cause invasive algal overgrowth and then coral disease. And we depend on our reefs for so many things, from fishing, seafood, tourism, storm buffers, and protection against tsunamis and so many other things. And so we really have to make sure that we're protecting our reefs. And we do this, we can detect these levels by testing for sucralose, artificial sweeteners. And so we can distinguish with human consumption items that are commonly consumed, like sucralose or caffeine, in the wastewater, and that distinguishes it from like high nutrients from agricultural runoff. And then they often have high fecal indicator bacteria. So places like Haiena Reef is especially vulnerable to cesspool and nutrient pollution. And then many cesspools are near drinking water aquifers, and that's where you get what I was referring to as the elevated levels of nitrate in the drinking water. And it also causes blue baby syndrome. So talking about, sorry, my forward button is not working so well. We'll kind of focus on the situation in Honolulu. The Department of Health has listed across the state and each county different priority levels. Priority 1 is a significant risk with known impacts to drinking water resources. Priority 2 is potential impacts to drinking water. And priority 3 is potential impacts to ecologically sensitive waters with algal overgrowth, those kind of things. Shh, Lola. Sorry, that's my dog. She gets very excited about this stuff and upset. So we have 5 areas on Oahu that are priority areas according to DOH. And each of these red dots represents a cesspool across the county. So Diamond Head and Ewa and Waimanalo and Waialua, where we just did a town hall meeting, they're all priority 3 areas. And we've seen the damage they've done to reefs and such, and in monitoring, nearshore monitoring, we've seen really elevated levels, often where they should be closing the beaches if they were going, by EPA guidelines. Kahalu is a priority 1 area where there is known risk to drinking water. So this kind of just shows the different areas in Kahalu, very close to the shore, very densely located, these cesspools. And so we are often telling, like, there's 740 in this area alone that release 440,000 gallons per day of effluent discharge. So it's sizable. So we like to include our, representatives and senators and council members, so if you want to take screenshots of any of this, feel free, or we can share this afterwards with you. But surprisingly, Diamond Head has a lot in some of the most expensive areas, which is really ironic. There are 240 in this area, releasing 170,000 gallons per day of effluent. And this hits home for me because these are the areas where I surf. And Ewa has 1,100, releasing 710,000 gallons per day. And Waialua has just over 1,000 as well, and releasing about the same, 750,000 gallons per day. So we're working with our senators, and Waimanalo also has these, especially in some of these beach lots. And so we're working in each of these communities. We've already held some town hall meetings to educate the public and try to, like this, let them know about the health risk and the environmental risk, and then some potential options of what they can do, and maybe funding. And so again, if you want to contact your representative, you can take a screenshot of this, or I'll send it to you. But this is the session where there are already like 10 bills on cesspools. And so we think we're going to get a lot of action this session, because it's just been a problem that Hawaii kicked, the can down the road for decades. And now we finally really have to do something about it to start this conversion plan. And so, if we talk about what kind of system is right for your property, Act 125 requires that all of them be converted to a septic system or aerobic system, or connected to sewer, or newer system approved by DOH. That's one of the bills that we have right now, because there's all kinds of innovative systems. And so we want to do some of the best, and ironically, some of the best are the most affordable as well. And so there's another legislation, there's some bills that we're working on that would require conversions at the time of sale when a property is sold. And so it would be like within a year of that property being sold, and for properties that are within 1,000 feet of a body of water, a well, or the coastline. And then, just so you all know, many of you might know this, if you are applying for a building modification, adding a bedroom or whatever, doing serious renovations with a bathroom, carport, or anything, DOH will require you to upgrade your cesspool. You can't get a permit from DPP unless you do that. And then, just to kind of give you an overview about the process, generally you can reach out to us if you need help. We can kind of steer you in the right direction. And we have something called the Potty Portal. Again, just because we love puns in this business, on our website. And it's our website is www.vicleanwater.org. And it walks you through all this process. But just to give you an idea, generally you need to hire a licensed wastewater engineer to come up with a plan, and check out your cesspool or your septic system if it's failing. And then you submit that plan to the wastewater branch at DOH for approval. Then you hire a licensed contractor to do the work, working with the engineer, and the construction begins. The cesspool is either backfilled or removed. And once that's all done, the engineer submits a IWS, which stands for Individual Wastewater System Construction Inspection Report, to the wastewater branch. And so this is the website that will give you more information about that. And this is an excerpt from our Potty Portal that just kind of walks you through all the different situations that you might have at your home, so that when you talk to a wastewater engineer or contractor, you're kind of just educated about the step. We also have a list of licensed contractors and wastewater engineers. But a lot of it depends on like the slope of your property, the percolation rate of the soil. So they have to do a perk test, distance to a drinking water well, depth to the groundwater, size of the lot, distance to the nearest stream or shoreline. But again, we can help you with this. And if you want to submit, or know anybody that wants to submit their information to us, we ask you to send it to this tiny URL, .com /cesspool conversion. And once we have that information about number of bedrooms and where the property is, we can do research and help you with that. And then here are some different systems that you can convert to that are better than septic. So if you're anywhere near a body of water, DOH is going to kind of mandate that you do better than a regular septic system because of the nitrogen and phosphorus and the nutrient pollution. And so one of those is, we just installed one on the Big Island, is a category called biofilters. And so Elgin is a veteran-owned company, and they designed the leach field in such a way that you have these filters that go out, a nitrifying sand layer, and then a denitrifying sand and wood chip layer. And that gets rid of more than 50% and sometimes much higher of the nitrogen and phosphorus. So the effluent that goes out into the groundwater is much, much better quality if you're anywhere near a beach, or a well or something. We also just got approved. We worked and did a 6-month pilot test with a category called constructed wetlands, which is a little bit of a misnomer because it's not a wetland, but it acts like one. And this is called a bioreactor garden. So we do this with our partner, Ridge to Reefs. And it's similar to the filtered biofilter in that it's a passive system, and using plants sometimes and sand and wood chips, it helps denitrify and get rid of this phosphorus and nutrients from the effluent. There's also, you might have heard of aerobic treatment units, ATUs, and this is one by Fuji Clean. And this is like a septic tank, except it has an air pump and it aerates inside. And so the oxygen helps the aerobic bacteria break down the sludge. So you don't have to pump this nearly as often. And then the water quality, the effluent is much better. It reduces the nitrogen and nutrients by over 50% as well. And those are standards that are set, by the National Sanitation Foundation. And then this is the one that gets a lot of, attention. I met the manufacturers of the Cinderella incineration toilet in Beijing at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Reinvented Toilet Expo. And I know you're jealous that you couldn't be at this expo. But I was very surprised when they called it Cinderella. I was like, why would you call an incinerating toilet Cinderella? And then they reminded me, well, the myth of Cinderella is, a Scandinavian myth, and she gets her name because she sweeps the cinders out of the fireplace. So I was like, oh, that's actually very appropriate. These are waterless tanks that you can replace any toilet with, and you just block up the existing water line, and then you have a valve in the back that allows the air to go through the exhaust. And we have an electric version for homes, and then a propane use for ones that are off the grid. And we've done about 20 of these across Hawaii, and people really like them. We won an innovation award from Kauai County to do this. It's just finishing up this week. These are certified by the National Sanitation Foundation, and they only produce an odorless, pathogen-free ash, which literally once a week, if that, you might have to dump the ash in a trash can, or you could just put it in your garden because it's all nutrients. So that's really interesting and exciting, and this could change the way we do sanitation pretty dramatically. And we were the first to bring it into the Western United States and into Hawaii. So we're very excited about that. Along with those individual wastewater systems, we're also advocating for more community scale systems. And these are sometimes referred to cluster systems or package plants. And this is kind of a middle ground between centralized sewer, which is very, very expensive. It's the most expensive kind of sanitation option you can have. It's about $1 million to lay down sewer lines per mile. And it disrupts roadways and takes a lot of time. And so we're looking for options, especially in rural areas where they're just not going to, and suburban areas where they're not going to be able to afford, the counties can't afford to do more sewer. And so when you have neighborhoods of between 20 and 200 homes, these can work really well because you can recycle all the liquids and the solids, and you have resource recovery, and you can use the recycled water for irrigation. It's guaranteed going to be clean enough for irrigation, or just recharging the aquifer. And then you can use the solids, you can burn them through pyrolysis, and you can create biochar, which is an excellent soil amendment and a carbon sink. And these can be much cheaper than spending, anywhere from 25, 30 to up to 50,000 for individual wastewater systems. And so we want to, go towards a more circular economy where we're working with a company called Cambrian, which can recycle all the water for irrigation. And we're working on a pilot project on that right now. And another one called Biomass Controls, which can burn the solids from that process and turn it into biochar, which is an odorless kind of ash. It's more like coffee grounds. And it's an excellent carbon sink. It can help prevent erosion. It can be used for filtration, stormwater filtration and such. It can be also used on farms, to increase the yield, because it's a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus. And where you want that on the land, you don't want that going out to sea. So if we can keep it on the land, it's great. So this is kind of a vision of where we're moving in the future, and the not too near distant future. And we hope that Hawaii can kind of go from last place, in still having the most cesspools per capita, to a leader in sanitation innovation in the country. Just so you all know, we're working on a number of bills this legislative session to help homeowners with the financing of these upgrades. But USDA, the Rural Development Office, offers grants and loans. And so these are low interest loans that, if you qualify, can help with this process. It's a little bit, we can assist with the application. It's a little bit, a bit of a process, I'll say that, to do. But we're working on bills now that will make loans and even grants hopefully more viable. And then we have the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the largest of its kind in American history. And so we're hoping there'll be some federal grants with that. We're waiting to see as well. And then just to kind of give you an overview, a brief overview as I wrap up, we are looking at, as we said, working with a number of realtors, trying to do the cesspool conversion upon point of sale of properties with a tax credit this year. So we'll be bringing back a tax credit, and we think that will be a great opportunity to get a lot of cesspools each year, because with 30-year mortgages, that runs up against the 2050 deadline. So we need to get these converted soon while there's money on the table. And then also we have a bill doing property assessed cesspool conversions. So it ties the cost of that to the house, so it's easier to get a loan. And that's at the state level as well. And then we have finally a cesspool fee and subsidy bill, where we would charge a very small amount to cesspool owners who don't pay anything right now, and who are, the source of a lot of these problems. And we put that into a fund to help them convert with the cost of cesspool conversion later on. So it's a dedicated fund. So it's just kind of like putting into Social Security so you can collect later with this. But you can find out more info at these at our website, wycleanwater.org, or email us at info@wycleanwater.org, and follow us, wycleanwater, on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. But yeah, that's all I have for now. And I appreciate you guys kind of listening through that rather long presentation, but we wanted to kind of give you a good overview.
Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah.
Does anybody have questions?
Yeah, Stuart, thanks for a real crappy topic, but a real important one. And I'm curious, what's the biggest barrier? I mean, I sit here thinking, this is like, forgive it, but no shit, this is like obvious.
Yeah.
So
Money.
is it money? Is it status quo, entrenched? Like, why not?
Yeah, it's a good question, Dan.
Stuart.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, is the issue just money? I mean, that's, or yeah,
Right.
What is the issue?
I think money is probably one of the biggest obstacles, but there are other obstacles. I mean, I think some people are like, oh yeah, my cesspool works fine. We flush and we never think about it and it just goes into the ground. And so they don't think there's a problem. But once we start giving these presentations, a lot of owners have really kind of come around going like, oh, wow, I did not know this at all. Like now I'm concerned and I want to do something. And so that's why a lot of what we're doing is just, and really would ask you to do the same, is just talk to people about it. Because it is a serious issue, and we traveled to Suffolk County this summer in Long Island. And, I mean, dogs and pets were dying because they were drinking out of the lakes in the area. That's how bad it had gotten. And, the shellfish industry is totally collapsed. And, fish populations have declined. They have huge algal blooms, which are just very expensive to clean up and really can affect a county's bottom line dramatically and a state's bottom line with tourism. So yeah, I think there are a number of obstacles. Inertia is one of them. People are just like, oh, well, I don't know what to do. And but once education is key, once they are aware of the issues, there's much more likely they're going to do something about it. And then, hopefully the more funding we can get, the better it'll be.
Do you feel like because of the Navy and the drinking water being affected, has this spurred some interest on this for you as well? I would think so.
Yeah, people, having to shut down rather that major section of the aquifer that provides drinking water to so many people on Oahu. They're really kind of concerned that we might have to do some more water rationing. So yeah, it makes these things even more important that we protect our aquifer. So yeah, there's a direct connection to what's happening at Red Hill.
And just on that, I mean, there was, the Board of Water Supply is saying, oh, this is going to jeopardize more development. And that's, then you're starting to see the non-water pressures.
Yeah.
You can't build, more houses or whatever. And then the big money is there, which I guess is what you're getting to. I'm curious on Board of Water Supply. I remember years past, they were not so keen on gray water. Has that changed in where people are more open to this new, even though it's not new, source of irrigation?
Yeah.
And Department of Health as well. I mean, I was shocked to see you showing vegetables with, water that's being reprocessed.
Right. And yeah, they are coming around just because they have to. They're realizing how important it is separating our black water from our gray water, because gray water really can be recycled and put back into the aquifer so easy. And so, yeah, they're starting to realize they're going to have to embrace gray water recycling. And so, in the end, one of the things I didn't talk about tonight was we are approved for an earmark, if the federal budget can ever get passed, to do workforce development, because this could create literally up to 2,000 jobs converting all these cesspools. And these are green jobs that won't go away and pay pretty well. And there'll be lots of federal money flowing into the state. So it could be a really good thing for the economy as well. And the more we take care of it, the more, I think it'll allow for more affordable housing to be developed, kind of as you mentioned.
So I just secured Lauren Rothbanu for speaking in May for our guest speaker, and she kind of dovetails on Stuart, and they're dealing with stormwater runoff and a lot of the things with the Board of Water Supply and capturing the water, and how things are going with Sand Island. Like, I just did a podcast with her, so she's going to be coming on to speak, which will kind of kind of give an overview of everything, which would be nice to have before Stuart came on. But I mean, that's just how I ended up meeting both of them separately. And I guess Randall Wakamoto, CCHDFM, will probably join her to talk on the stormwater utility prior. So yeah, we'll get some more info on all this stuff too.
Lauren's on our advisory board, so yeah, she's great. You'll like her. Yeah, other questions.
How much is that? Go, Jacob.
I have a number of questions, so if you have a quick one, go ahead.
Oh, I was just curious how much that incinerator Cinderella thing costs for a toilet.
Yeah, so that goes with kind of all in about $5,000 per toilet, which seems very expensive. But if you were able to save and not do a whole plumbing and septic tank and system, which is going to cost you a minimum of $25,000, it could actually end up saving you a lot of money. And then you would just, recycle your other water, gray water recycling. So that's what we're doing in Kauai. We just finished a project where we converted all the toilets to Cinderella units. And then we're recycling the gray water, and then the kitchen water, we just have a small little tank for in leach field. So yeah, go ahead, Jacob.
Oh, wait, I have a quick follow-on question on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jacob. The Cinderella toilets, are they viable for marine usage?
Oh, on ships?
Yeah.
Yeah. They have been used in motorhomes, and the plant in Norway, and I know they've been used on some ships, and I think that's where they're moving. In Norway, they rebuild a whole new factory because global demand for these has gone up so high, especially during the pandemic, when you had international kind of medical crews and humanitarian workers that were traveling all around, and they were like, we got to make sure that our waste is not infected and then we're not being exposed to anything. And so a number of state agencies are buying these for remote locations, but I think, yeah, eventually they will be making them for ships. Yeah, because it just, it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All you, Jacob.
All right. So I'll start with marine dead zones and anoxic zones. Like, is that something that we're frequently experiencing in Hawaii? It's probably not as bad as like the Mississippi, but
exactly. Yeah, so there are dead zones in like at the end of the Mississippi and Louisiana and the Gulf region, and it's so bad that literally nothing lives there in certain areas. They call it Cancer Alley, these communities that live near there. And then the ocean dead zones are just, it's like jellyfish and algae. That's all that can survive. We're lucky in that we're islands, and so there's generally, circulation. And so you don't have those large stagnant bodies of water. But there are lots of bays here, Kaneohe Bay and place where they're fringing reef, where, yeah, Kaneohe Bay at one point was, and there are a number of places that are listed as, by the EPA as impaired bodies of water. They're, not quite dead zones as bad as on the mainland, but getting pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I, before coming out here, I worked for Water Energy Innovations and doing research on wastewater technology for enhanced recycling in the Central Valley. So, my entire job was to look at different wastewater treatment solutions and see what was viable. My favorite one was a company called Biofiltro. Have you heard of them?
What is it called again?
Biofiltro.
It sounds familiar. Yeah, tell me about it.
It's vermiculture. So using 3 layers, earthworm humus with live earthworms on top, and then gravel and sand.
Right.
For bacterial growth. And it's very good at handling wastewater at community scale.
Yeah.
Up to 1 million gallons per day.
Yep. And there's a pilot project going on right now with vermiculture like that in East Honolulu. Yeah, Tiger Biofilter. we're working with. So yeah, it's a cool pilot project that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you could follow up with me, I'd love to talk to you more about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I had a question also about the sludge, and you're converting it to biochar, which I love. I love that solution. But what about sludge drying? Because that is a very energy intensive process, and there are some solutions for that. But
Yeah.
do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, if we, I think if you use, so for everybody, once a wastewater treatment plant, you treat the wastewater, and then in you produce this sludge, solids, but it's still a lot of water. And throughout the state, they have to truck that to landfills where it continues to emit all kinds of off gases, a lot of greenhouse gases. And so biomass usually has like a drying belt and a screw press to really get most of the moisture out, but then it can take it with some moisture still in it. And then that process of high heat, low oxygen for hours on end produces this odorless, pathogen-free biochar, which gets rid of all the PFOS and PFAS and all these contaminants of emerging concern. And it is literally, it's based on the ancient Amazon Indian technique of they would burn their waste and put it in the soil. And that's partly why the Amazon is so just prolific and produces so much. And there's very little erosion. They called it terra preta, the black earth, and it kept everything in place. So this is a solution that many people are saying, you want to do one thing that will make a difference with climate change with so many levels, save money for counties in the state, move to biochar. It has so many uses. It takes something that we're basically right now wasting our waste. We treat it, and then we take the solids to a landfill, and we pump the treated water into the ocean. It's a complete waste, 100% loss, when we could be recycling 100% of it. So that's kind of the cool, exciting thing that's, I think, on the horizon.
Yeah, it's also highly carbon intensive. So, you store a ton of carbon when you use it. It's absorptive for nitrogen and phosphorus, so it prevents, in agriculture, prevents those from leaching out into the environment. It's, yeah, I freaking love biochar.
There's somebody in Maui working on this. I gotta find them for you, Jacob. And they're wanting to work with David Sands with the bamboo and everything. But yeah, I think they want to. Yeah, there's some stuff with it.
Yeah, let us know too, Christina. Yeah, we'd love to be in touch with them. Yeah. Any final questions?
I know we're a little over time, so if anybody does have to go, feel free to jump off. But if you have a couple more questions, if Stuart's got the time, feel free.
Yeah. I just got to make sure my dog doesn't eat my dinner. That's the only thing.
I guess the only other thing that I was kind of curious about is, when you're looking at a wastewater treatment plant that's connected to the sewers, right? It's preferable that it's down gravity, right, from the source. So in a lot of those like beach communities, are you more focused on connecting them to the sewers, or are you more focused on converting them or upgrading?
Sewers is honestly, unless you're near your community that's near a sewer line that can just be extended a small, way, then we are just generally being told by the state, by the county, it's not going to happen. It's just too much money and it's too expensive, and it's wasteful. Yeah, because even though it's the best, we can guarantee it because the county can oversee it and make sure it goes to the right place. Like we said, it's wasteful. They're not going to do anything with it. So we think the decentralized cluster systems are going to be the best opportunity, because then you can use piping that's small, can be directionally drilled, you can use PVC piping from each home to a smaller plant that's mobile and scalable. And Cambrian, if you guys are interested, because you guys are leaders in your various fields, they are a company that does like sanitation as a service. So they can bring millions of dollars worth of equipment without any upfront costs. And so the community pays per, pennies per treated gallon. And so it's sanitation as a service. So, if you're looking at 30,000 to convert your cesspool, but you're in a neighborhood where everybody's got them, you could save so much money and then recycle all of that water. So, you could have lots of uses for it. It's much cleaner that way and much easier and cheaper in the long run.
Oh, yeah. I know in California, toilet to tap is kind of the buzzword that they use constantly. But that's pretty intensive treatment. Is there any conversation about making water potable?
We are trying not to do that because that throws off a lot of people. When you think about drinking it, and there's so many other uses, and you have to take it up to such a high level that it is expensive to take it to potable. But if you just take it to R2 or R1, you can reuse it in so many agricultural fields. And, in California, in Southern California, what they do is they pump it back into the groundwater, and it's acting as a force pushing back sea level rise and inundation of the aquifer. Because as the aquifer starts to shrink up and water leaves it, you have saltwater intrusion. So they're pumping it back in to create this lens to push it out to protect their clean water, which is really cool.
Yeah, we'll learn all about this with Lauren too, because she talks about all this stormwater runoff and stuff, and you'll be surprised how much water is wasted there too.
And she's really good at that. Yeah, so I think it'll be a natural segue when she, follows up.
One thing that really frustrated me about California was like they're implementing more water recycling resources, so they're going to be recycling more water. But because nobody wanted the recycled water, they're actually building more what do you call them? More golf links there, just to have somewhere to put the recycled water. So it's not actually, the recycled water isn't going anywhere where it could be otherwise mitigating drought resistance or drought resilience.
Yeah. And there are already predictions of declining rainfall in Hawaii as well. And then this Red Hill situation has really, amped up the need to, replenish our aquifers, just because we have such a major source is going to be cut off, and we don't know for how long. I mean, I've heard some people say, this could be long term, just because once you have that kind of petrochemical contamination, it can last a long time. It's almost impossible to get it completely out. So.
All right. Well,
hey, Stuart, I had one question, if I can, real quick.
Sure.
Just curious of the possibility for Genki balls, as it applies to you. Had mentioned one of the techniques alternatives was to aerate, so that the sludge really doesn't have a chance.
Yeah.
Is there any application for Genki balls to be used to treat the sludge?
There is. We're working with another company that does that specifically. It really builds up the microbes to, specifically target certain kinds of waste and to reduce the amount of solid waste. So that's, definitely an option. And, I think for impaired bodies of water like the alawai, it's the perfect option. Because it's just so easy, effective. It doesn't have any harmful effects, and it could just make a huge difference in the alawai, and it already has in parts of the alawai. So yeah, I think it's a great campaign that you guys are doing with the Genki balls and the alawai, because then they'll have to dredge it a lot less often, so it'll be less costly and more effective treatment.
awesome. Well, I know, Stuart, you have to run, so I want to make sure we get you out of here. And